Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 166, Divine Communication, part 1. And this part is all about communicating with other humans. It's fairly personal. I'm talking a lot about things that are happening in my life currently, but I hope that something in it is useful for you. Enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci, here to remind you that you are an eternal soul having a temporary human incarnation here on lovely planet Earth. Make the most of it. This is still Season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 166, Divine Communication. And let's get right to it, shall we? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please help these words to be useful to all listeners on their evolutionary journey. Let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. Divine communication. This topic has been finding me almost everywhere I go this last month. In almost every area of my life, maybe every area of my life, it feels like I am being compelled to really pay attention to my speech, to how I am presenting in any given situation. And there are several simultaneous situations happening in my life right now that are requiring my best try, my best efforts in communicating. And I'm going to share some of those with you because there's a larger context happening here. And there are definitely areas in your life, either right now or in the past, that communication has been key. And it either, however you were, either affected the situation positively or negatively. Maybe potentially neutral, but the idea is that communication is of utmost importance, and for whatever reason, it is front and center right now for me. And if it's front and center right now for me, I'm thinking that it may be front and center for other people as well. So I'm going to share some of the situations that I'm currently attempting to navigate through with as much grace as I can. And the overarching thing here is, the idea is there is a correct way to navigate through difficult situations, through conflict situations, through uncomfortable situations. And I am by no means an expert at this yet, but I'm being tested. And there's a reason I'm being tested, and if I'm being tested, I know that others are being tested, and maybe you've already learned this lesson in your journey, but this is for all those who right now hear my voice and are in this current lesson of how to communicate divinely. There's ways to do this, and we'll get into that more after a few of my examples. So in one area of my life, I live in a town which has undergone a few significant changes in the last few months. The town used to be administered by one administrator, even though there's several different condominium units and they're allowed to have different administrators. It was all under one. A few months ago, half of the town voted to get new administrators, as is their right, and the other half decided to stay with the original one. Now, this is a very big simplification of what happened, but this is the big picture. And because of this decision and other things that go into it, this once amicable place where everyone said hello to each other, everyone asked how each other is doing, people always had friendly and cordial interactions, and even more than that, became like family and spent holidays together in many cases. Now there's several factions in town, and sometimes, in many cases, neighbors won't even look at each other. They won't even acknowledge another person's presence, depending on where they have fallen on this issue. And it's horrible to see when this happens. And I'm one of those people that I think just naturally has always been able to get along with most people. Maybe not everyone, but I definitely didn't try to leave a group out. I was somebody who didn't necessarily belong to like one group in high school, but was able to communicate with people in different groups. Even if I didn't feel like a full sense of belonging from each group, I felt like I had friends in each group and could be accepted if I needed to be there. But I like to move around and maintain friendships with everyone. I refuse right now in this situation to end friendships with people in this town over this issue. And to counter this, to be some kind of counterbalance, I've encouraged open communication among the parties because I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding on both sides. I'm trying to be a bridge builder, and I don't know if I'm doing any good, but I know that there is a way through this. There's a divine path through every obstacle. There's a correct way forward to get out of any situation, whether it's uncomfortable or trying or dangerous. There's always a path forward that is divinely sanctioned. And so I am observing myself attempting to not avoid difficult topics and difficult issues or uncomfortable things with my neighbors, but trying to be open enough with my heart open, the door open for communication with all parties on this issue. And so far, I haven't lost any friends that I know of in this community. But it is really challenging, especially as a person kind of my age. A lot of the folks in this town are older. It's challenging to kind of share my opinion on the direction that we should go, because I don't want to sound like I know better. I don't necessarily know better, but I know there's a better way than what's currently happening. And I think after so many different things have happened in this town, some people are just done. Some people are just fed up. Some people just feel like they have to close all the doors and bulldoze through and do it the way that they think that they need to do it, which may or may not include the rest of the town. But I'm trying to maintain and ask for, in several situations, I've asked for this baseline of kindness and respect towards each other, even if you don't agree on the topic. This baseline of having some amount of respect for every other person here and keeping the door to communicating open. And not everyone's doing that, and not everyone's going to do that. But it seems to me like these things are the necessary things in order to be able to communicate. And again, I'm definitely not an expert. This is something that is being so forcibly put up in every area of my life right now that I have to try to navigate it. I'm being forced on some level to try to navigate this, because this is just one instance. There are other instances. I am in a doctoral program right now, and in that program we do a lot of attempting to better our communication through really understanding what it is you're feeling in your human body. And this whole process has been really interesting to me because of a lot of reasons. But for one, your physiology changes when you do certain types of meditation and certain spiritual development practices, such as transcendental meditation and some of the practices that I use, like listening to subconscious repair once a week, and the other processes from John Douglas. So there's practices in this world that release stress that gets built up in every human body. And those people's physiology changes. And they handle stress differently. They handle encounters differently, communication differently, everything differently. That's why every once in a while we'll hear about how good meditation is, because certain types of meditation will physiologically change you and make everything kind of work more smoothly. So where am I going with that? It's just that several people in my cohort are meditators and several are not, or are just starting to become meditators. And again, meditation's not the only way to change like this. There's other tools, like I mentioned, but suffice it to say, I have not been someone who lately, in the past several years, has been necessarily so in touch with my more strong feelings, emotions when I'm feeling them. And I think part of that is because I feel less of them. I've been feeling less of them. And I think that has to do with these tools that I just mentioned. Okay. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel things. I am feeling things. So what I'm getting at here is this program really wants us to, when we are feeling something, to sink into it and figure out what it is that we are feeling. You might react with anger to something, but underneath that is actually hurt. Or you might react with fear to something, but what might be underneath that is anger, etc. And some of you might be listening to this being like, duh, we know this already. Well, it's kind of fascinating to me because it turns out that there really is emotions underneath what you are feeling or thinking that you're feeling at the time that can help lead to the resolution of problems and issues, especially communication issues. And so it's been a practice of mine now in these various situations. And the situation that my cohort has been dealing with most recently is various feelings about the election results in the U.S. election, the most recent U.S. election and inauguration, and everything that has happened in the past few weeks as a result of that. And as somebody who used to be on one extreme side of the political topic and issues and has now come way more to being moderate and in the middle on a lot of things, it's been an interesting phenomenon to observe, because there was a time when I observed these really divisive issues and statements, or would make really divisive statements, and really truly only believe that the way that I thought was correct was the correct way. And having come over to the middle the last several years, on many of these topics, I can now see the sides of both and then make a choice. And it's not like I'm all on one side or all on the other side for anything. And sometimes I'm not on any side at all for various topics. But it's something I wasn't able to do before. And I'm seeing how important that is for communication purposes. Because if you really, truly only believe and feel that your way of thinking is the correct way and the only way that a good person, that a solid, successful, human-loving person could feel, then there's an issue because you're not open to any of the other perspectives, opinions, or ways of looking at a topic. And so I'm seeing these parallels being drawn between issues that my cohort has had when certain discussions come up in class or lab, and also between what's happening in my beloved town where it's a similar story. Many of the residents feel one way, and their way is the only correct answer and the only correct way to perceive things on any side, on all sides, on both sides. And therefore, that is shutting down communication. And again, forgive me, skip over this episode if all of this is novice to you, but I think it's important to talk about because we're in a moment in our planet, and these are just two examples. These are just two examples from my life. You have examples in your own life, your own families, your own work, your own just living in your neighborhood, your own groups, your own hobbies, your own sports, whatever. I guarantee you, if you look at all the aspects of your life, there is somewhere where communication could function more, could have more functionality. Your group, your organization, your family could have more functionality if there were some tweaks in communication. And I'm so not the expert on this, but I'm being faced with it every single day. So I'm seeing these parallels of like, okay, when someone thinks that they're completely ultimately right, and even more dangerous, self-righteous in the way that they think about things. And I've definitely been like that. Definitely. I might still be like that in some things. I need to examine everything. But when that is a quality that you have about something, then the doors are shut to anything else, even to hearing anything else often. When there is that much conviction that your way is the right way, you can't hear, see, feel, or know, or have any opening to know anything else. And that's dangerous. And that's what's happened over time, certainly in my lifetime, to a greater and greater extent, especially in the United States. I can't really speak for any other country, but living and being and observing what's happened in my country over the last couple of decades, you used to be able to be friends with somebody who didn't think the same way as you, or vote the same way as you, or feel about this issue the same way as you. There was a respect, there was a kindness, there was okay, we don't need to agree on those things. I respect your opinion, you respect mine, let's move on with our life. Let's play cards, let's have dinner, let's do business, whatever. And I'm not saying that nobody's like this anymore, because so many people are still like this. But the point is, for whatever reason, I'm noticing in my life these closed doors, these doors that are closed in so many places. And I guess one of the things that I'm thinking about lately is, how do I open these doors? And then I have to go through and decide what doors should even be open anymore. Let me give you another example of that. Just today, I was texting with an old friend, somebody I've known for 25 years. And I said something that led this person to say, "Are you a Trump supporter?" And I said, "Well, I used to be ultra left, but given the past few years, I've become moderate. And also I'm pretty apolitical in general." And we had been responding, we had been texting with no wait in between. And this person didn't respond to me. And, maybe something happened, maybe work came up, family came up, something came up, and that just couldn't happen. That would be the benefit of the doubt. But I don't think that's what happened. I think that this person stopped texting with me because I said I was moderate. And it's just another moment. It's just another thing. If that is indeed the truth, if that's what happened, and there wasn't something else that came up, I may have just lost a friendship that is more than half of my life long because I said that I was not ultra left anymore. And then these thoughts come up of like, well, should I just not bring up anything like that? Should I not be real when somebody asks me a question? Should I hide to keep the peace, to make everyone comfortable? And my angels and my guidance are gently there right in front of me saying, no, you shouldn't. You shouldn't just try to keep the peace. This isn't the moment for that anymore. And also, on some level, if these people around you, around me, are so close to something that is not even the opposite of them, just not exactly what they're thinking, that they wouldn't respond to you or wouldn't be friends with you, that might be a sign that it's time to let that relationship go. And I'm not a person that ever wants to do that, but I would keep the door open is what I'm saying. The door is open for me, but at what point do you keep knocking on their door? I thought about this all day today. Like, do I continue to reach out? Do I say, hey, like, does that really bother you? Do I keep texting and trying to get a response from this person? I haven't done any of that, and I don't think I'm supposed to. And it's not like it's not going to dramatically change my life to not have that relationship. But it's interesting. It's just another thing. It's another example of how polarized people can be right now at this moment and are at this moment. And I think that's why I'm talking about this. I'm sharing some fairly personal things right now, which kind of scares me to do, honestly. I feel like I don't know, feels vulnerable somehow. But this topic feels so important. It feels so important because what I've noticed in my few examples over the last few weeks are a few things. So, like I mentioned already, if someone is convinced that their version of the story is right with no opening, it's a shut door and you can't really move past that. And I've found that I haven't found a good way to open that door. I want to find a good way to open that door, especially with people who really matter to me. But in the absence of finding that open door, I've been forced to allow people to be where they are, even if they just want to be with all the doors closed around them, believing exactly what they believe. There has to be some kind of an opening and a mutual respect. That's what I've observed, for there to be constructive conversation that can lead to more functionality in a relationship, functionality in a town, functionality in a cohort, functionality among friends in a group, a baseline of respect and at least a little bit of openness. And if those things aren't there, I don't know what to do about that yet. I haven't figured that out yet. Another thing that I've noticed that has helped in many of the conversations I've had the last few weeks is, in fact, stating what you feel, much to my surprise. I was not the person who was the most excited about the digging into the emotions and feelings part of this program. But despite everything, I'm actually understanding that when you first have the awareness to really just feel into what you're feeling, like, okay, I'm feeling anger. Okay, why am I feeling anger? And then getting beneath that and understanding, wow, I'm actually feeling hurt. Why am I feeling hurt? Oh, because this makes me think of this one time when this happened. and I'm protecting myself by feeling anger, but what I really feel is hurt. So first of all, just identifying and becoming aware of what you're feeling. And when do you need to do this? Basically, whenever you feel reactive to something. Whenever you feel reactive to something, sink in and become aware of what the feeling is at the base. There's probably something beneath your initial feeling. And why is that important? Because when you can actually feel what's at the root of it, then you can share that, which is also a vulnerable thing to do, to say, wow, when you sent that email to this person, it really made me sad that your email was so harsh that it made that person cry. It made me sad. And when you can say exactly what you're feeling, I don't know, something, it opens a door. You're being vulnerable. You're opening something of yourself to allow the other person to respond, hopefully in a respectful and also open manner. And then you can move towards more functionality in whatever your issue or conflict or subject is. I'm realizing that this can happen literally all the time in anything that's like not even high stakes, just like even with your friends that you don't have any issues with, you could do this. Maybe this whole episode is just for me. This whole episode is just processing everything that I've been trying to navigate in my life. There's other examples too. There's a different friend who I love deeply that we need to have a conversation based on something that happened the last time we saw each other a few years ago that we haven't worked through yet. And that feels scary. And it's kind of like my life went from like zero communication conflicts, or what I perceived as zero communication conflicts, to all of these opportunities coming up in all these different aspects of trying to be better, trying to navigate these situations with grace. And the key word there is trying to navigate them in general, not just letting them be, because a lot of what I used to do was just let them be. And I wanted God to work them out. I wanted my angels to work them out. And I'm still asking them for help, because it does make everything smoother for me if I request of my angelic teams to help me with these issues, to help me say the correct words, to help me find the divine communication way through these issues. It is helping. So I highly encourage that. If that is something that you would like to try, if you would like to, maybe there's issues in your life that you also haven't touched, that you also haven't tried to ameliorate because of fear, because of convincing yourself that you're just going to let that thing go. But what we're doing is we're avoiding intimacy on some level. We're avoiding solutions. We're avoiding finding solutions together to work towards more functionality in all of these things. And I'm being told pretty loudly by my angelic teams that I can't do that anymore. I have to be authentic. I have to try to find a way through. I can't just sit and ignore these things anymore. I need to try to be a bridge builder. I don't know if you do, but that's part of my role at this moment. I need to try to be a bridge builder. And I won't cut anyone off. I won't do that. I'm not going to close the door. I'm going to keep the door open, but I can't make other people keep the door open. And that's the hard part. And it hurts. It hurt when my friend didn't text me back after I said that I wasn't ultra left anymore. But what can I do about it? So this divine communication, there's so much more to say on this. Maybe more will come through in the next episode, but for now, I'm going to leave it here for everyone to think about and what they need to do, what you need to do in your own life around this topic. As always, thank you for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up, and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.